oxygen, okay? So when glucose is broken down with oxygen, you get a major payoff in terms of ATP. Because of these NAD molecules and the FADH molecules, all of those different enzymes help create ATP. And so we get how many created? 38, okay? So that's a big payoff for all of those molecules, okay? But respiration can happen without oxygen as well, okay? So when respiration is happening without oxygen, we call it fermentation, okay? Or anaerobic respiration. So just like obligate anaerobes, where the bacteria, okay, that die in the presence of oxygen, they like to not have oxygen. Anaerobic respiration takes place when there is not any oxygen, okay? There are two kinds, okay? So the first one occurs when eukaryotic organisms run out of oxygen, okay? So you have a certain amount of oxygen available to you in all of your cells, okay? When you run through all of that oxygen, when you use up all of what is there, then you go into what's called anaerobic respiration, okay? Normally, on a day-to-day basis, when you're just sitting around listening, taking notes, having fun at lunch, you're not using anywhere near your maximum amount of oxygen, okay? But when you are exercising heavily, when you're running, lifting weights, playing a game for an extended period of time, at some point, your muscle cells lose the oxygen that they have available, okay? Now, obviously, you're not like passed out on the floor, so your body still has oxygen that it needs, but there's no extra left to send to your muscle cells. So you go into what's called anaerobic respiration, okay? When anaerobic respiration takes place, you get the first two steps still, right? You still get glycolysis and you still get the Krebs cycle, okay? But oxygen is where, or was used in the electron transport chain, okay? The electron transport chain can't take place without the oxygen, okay? So you still have some energy being created, okay? And some energy being used. So how many ATPs were created in glycolysis and Krebs? 6 altogether. How many were used? 2, okay? So our net gain here is 4 ATP molecules, okay? And again, 2 of them are going to be used for the organism. So overall, with anaerobic respiration, you get 2 ATP molecules created, okay? Not anywhere near what we had created with aerobic respiration, right? Okay. As you run out of oxygen in your cells, fermentation is going on. We get a buildup of what's called lactic acid. So instead of your pyruvate being broken down into the carbon dioxide and the NADH and the FADH, the pyruvate is broken down into lactic acid, okay? And lactic acid, like it sounds, is an acid. As lactic acid builds up in your muscles, that is what causes your muscles to cramp, and that's what causes your muscles to burn, okay? The presence of that lactic acid inside of your muscles over a long period of time takes a while for your body to work it out, takes a while for your body to repair the damage that happened, okay? And so that's why your muscles feel sore for a couple of days afterwards, okay? So when you're working out and you're running and you're doing all this stuff, you can go a really long time and be really powerful up to a point, right? Once your muscles start burning, can you continue going a whole lot longer? No, okay? I don't know in y'all's sports activities if y'all do what are called muscle failure activities, okay? But you literally go until your muscles can't work anymore. So you do push-ups literally until your arms will not lift up your body, okay? That means you have run through all of your aerobic respiration, so all of the energy created from that, and your muscle cells have run through all of the anaerobic respiration, okay? So your muscles are burning at that point. You're probably shaking. You're starting to be in a little bit of pain because of the buildup of lactic acid. And then your muscles quit, okay? So once you run totally out of energy, your muscles are going to stop. Yes, ma'am?
Is that why the rollers, muscle rollers, they take out, they squeeze out the lactic acid?
Yeah, so massage after you work out a whole lot helps break up the lactic acid and helps your body to sweep it away. So your excretory system is kind of cleaning up your cells and tissues and things like that, and it just takes time for that to happen, okay? The other kind of anaerobic respiration takes place in prokaryotes, okay? Prokaryotes can't do the ETC because the ETC takes place where?
Mitochondria.
In the mitochondria, okay? The Krebs cycle takes place in the mitochondria. Prokaryotes don't have any mitochondria, okay? So they can still do your glycolysis, and they're still creating a little bit of energy, but again, not a lot, okay? So they undergo a type of fermentation called alcoholic fermentation, and they break the pyruvate down into what's called ethyl alcohol, okay? So they're also creating some carbon dioxide waste, but they're creating what's called ethyl alcohol. The ethyl alcohol in this process of alcoholic fermentation is how we make beer and wine and some liquors and things like that. So the reason that they're called alcohol is because they are created through this process of alcoholic respiration, where we're breaking down those sugars into ethanol, okay? So again, we have a chemical reaction, okay? Your C6H12O6 is still our energy source, is still our main molecule. We're creating 2 ATP, we're creating some carbon dioxide waste, and then you get your 2 ethyl alcohols, okay? So sugar is still being broken down. Is our payoff anywhere near as good? No, not at all. However, prokaryotes are how many cells? 1 cell. They are always unicellular, okay? 2 ATP is plenty of energy for a unicellular organism to live, okay? It is not enough energy for a multicellular organism to live. That is why we have to bring in oxygen. We have to go through aerobic respiration, because if we did not, our muscles and our tissues would not have enough energy to keep our body functioning, okay? So alcoholic fermentation is used in a bunch of different things. Creates wine, creates apple juice, yogurts, yeast in making bread, all kinds of things that are kind of left to sit and to develop in the absence of oxygen, right? So if you're talking about like the creation of wine and whiskey and stuff like that, they put all that stuff together, and then what do they do with it? They stir it, they ferment it, but they lock it in barrels, right? Guess what there's not in that barrel? Oxygen, okay? So it's that buildup of ethyl alcohol that creates the alcoholic beverages, or other things depending on what your inputs are going to be. Yes, Lou?
Oh, I've had an experience that I put like fruit juice like inside a bottle and I put a balloon over it, and then the balloon like expanded.
Yep. So it's going to have expanded with the carbon dioxide. So as your fermentation process happens, so the yeast would have been in there with the Kool-Aid feeding on that sugar, and it's creating that carbon dioxide waste, and that's what causes the balloon to fill up. Okay. Okay. So then we just compared photosynthesis and respiration. Okay. So again, these things exist in a cycle. Photosynthesis and respiration are linked in everything that they do. The products of one are the reactants of the other, okay? The places that they happen, the things that they need are all very similar. When we looked at the electron transport chain for both, the electron transport chain was very similar, okay? So one process is an endothermic energy storing process. One process is an exothermic energy releasing process. So in your Venn diagram, under photosynthesis, I want you to add endothermic reaction. In your Venn diagram, under photosynthesis, I want you to write endothermic reaction. Okay? And then your respiration is an exothermic reaction. Okay, so what we're going to do next is I'm going to give you a diagram for cellular respiration, like I gave you one for photosynthesis, okay? So this one is already pre-labeled for you at what's happening in each of the steps. Okay? Not right this second. Okay. So in your diagrams here, right, we have the 3 steps. What's the first step for cellular respiration?
Breakdown.
What's it called? Glycolysis, okay? So you're going to color over here on the right where it says number 1, glycolysis, and then you're going to outline the actual molecular breakdown for glycolysis. What's our second step?
Krebs cycle.
The Krebs cycle or citric acid cycle. And so again, you're going to color that box number 2, and you're going to outline the box number 2 over on the left, okay? And then our last step is called what?
Oxidative phosphorylation.
Electron
Hey,
transfer.
solid effort there, Sam. Yeah. Just next to number 3, write ETC, okay? Oxidative phosphorylation is a real fancy way to say ETC, okay? And so then you're going to outline that whole picture number 3. And so number 3 shows you your electron transport chain in the membrane of the mitochondria, okay? So your Krebs cycle is happening in the matrix. The ETC is happening inside that folded membrane. So your electrons are attaining a high state of energy. The protein complexes serve as proton pumps, and the hydrogen ions build up and then move through the ATP synthase, and that's where your ATP is coming from. So again, we're going to add some color to those arrows to show the movement of those molecules.